All right, today we're going to show you how to use our helmets. It may seem kind of intuitive, but there are some hidden features in these helmets that actually make them perform and work better and have some pretty cool features. So let's go ahead and take a look. Our helmets are here. They're numbered 1 through 33. Our 31, 32, and 33 helmets are typically for our TAs. Those are the students that are helping you guys out in class. The desk you sit in, there should be a number at. That number corresponds with the same number on top of the helmet. So if you sit in desk number 13, you're going to wear helmet number 13. Because all our helmets are nice and tight up on here, when you go to put your helmet away, please take the back of your helmet and ratchet it up all the way and then hang it. That'll ensure that it doesn't hit the row behind it or above it, and that you'll have plenty of room to grab your helmet without knocking a bunch down on the ground. Oh my goodness, that one's... This is what happens when you don't ratchet it up all the way. How about that? Also, when you're done with your helmet, sometimes the helmet can be somewhat dirty from your welding process. Grab a paper towel, just wipe it down. Clean all that smut and grime off. That way the next student who comes to use it won't have to clean it for you, and they'll be able to see and get to work. When you put your helmet away, there's also the same number on the wall that's on your helmet. Make sure that you match those numbers up accordingly. We also have a variety of used welding jackets down here that you're free to use. Keep in mind though, they have been used by other students. If you prefer to have your own welding jacket or welding helmet, we'll have a locker that you can put your gear in on the first day of school. While we're welding, the helmets are a really important part of what we do. Without them, we wouldn't be able to see clearly. We wouldn't be able to do what we need to do while welding. These helmets are expensive though. They do retail for around $300 as seen here. With that being so much, this whole wall costs a lot of money. And so we want to make sure we take care of these helmets. So that's why we wipe them down and we clean them off and we make sure that they're hung up nice so they don't drop down on the ground, because the more these drop, again, they're still electronics. They're only going to last so long if you keep dropping them. When you're done welding in your booth, please don't take your helmet off and set it directly on the lens, all right? That will most surely ruin the lens and the helmet itself, especially if there's hot metal around. You could melt the screen and the ADF lens. So when you're done welding, it's almost always practice to either just keep it on your head or set it down on this rim, and it sits just like that. That is much safer for the helmet. It'll help it last a whole lot longer. If you are found being negligent on taking care of your helmet, you'll be responsible for replacing it. Let's take care of our helmets, make sure all of our students have an opportunity to have a good quality helmet and can see what they need to get done. In each of the booths, there's also going to be some hooks. Just make sure that if you want to leave your helmet in your booth while you go quench your metal or go find a hammer or a brush, that at the end of the class period, you bring your helmet all the way back into the classroom, again, wiping it off, ratcheting that strap all the way on, and putting it in the corresponding spot with the number matching. Okay, here we have the inside of a helmet. I've taken out the headgear so you guys can see clearly the controls of the lens for the auto darkening helmet. This is a Lincoln 2450 auto darkening helmet. There are 4 sensors down here and up there, and those need to be clear and clean on the lens so that the UV light, as you're welding, will trigger the helmet to go dark, all right? So that's another good reason to keep your lens clean, is that those ultraviolet sensors will be triggered when you start welding, all right? To tighten the headgear to keep it from tilting down on your head are these knobs on the side. You can tighten those. Don't loosen them too much, because then the knobs will fall off and the helmet will fall off your head. So you just want to keep them just barely snug. This button right here, if you hold it down, will turn on grind mode. So I'm going to actually hold this down here. You'll notice that the helmet will start to flash green. And that green light, if it's going, it is on grind mode, and it will not darken. And so you'll have a very bright light that will flash when you weld. It won't blind you, but it won't be comfortable. So if you need to turn that off, you're going to hold that button down until it blinks and then goes off. All right, so there's grind mode. You can always test right here to see if the battery is working, and that will make sure that the battery is going. First thing we have over here is our shade selector. All right, shade 9 through 13, or you can slide it down and go shade 5 through 8. Almost all of the welding we're going to be doing is up on this top slider to 9 to 13. When we do oxy-fuel cutting or plasma cutting, go ahead and slide that down to 5 to 8. Now, when it says shade over here, this is your selector. You have 9 and 5, 6 and 10, 7 and 11, 8 and 12, and 13. So you can kind of adjust that. So right now we're on the bottom slide of 5 to 8, and I'm right about 6. And so this helmet would darken to a shade 6, which is pretty good for plasma cutting. For oxy-fuel cutting, we'll keep it at 5. If we're going to weld, and I'm TIG welding, I would either select 9 through 13 up here and put it on shade 9 or shade 10. All right, that's where I would keep it. The sensitivity is how sensitive it is to the ultraviolet light. For most purposes, we're going to have it just below high. That way, the ultraviolet light that's coming through the windows in the shop or off the lights above us won't trigger it. If I leave it on high and I look out the window, it'll go dark because the sun gives off ultraviolet light and it will darken. So I put it down just below high. That way I know when I'm welding, the ultraviolet light given off by the welding arc will trigger the sensors. The delay time is how long the screen stays black after you're done welding. All right, the delay to go to a clear shade. Sometimes if you're going to be doing lots of welding and there's lots of welding around you, you may turn that delay all the way up, which will stay dark for a longer period of time, about 2 seconds or so. 2 seconds doesn't seem like a long time, but when you're in pitch black and you're done welding, it seems like forever. So a lot of times I'll actually put that delay time on the shortest one possible. That way the lens will switch right back to clear so I can get to moving around and working in the shop. All right, so that's pretty much it on the inside controls. Again, we have our grind mode out here. If that green light is flashing, it will not darken. Okay, so you got to be careful of that. Go ahead and hold that down and get that to flash and turn off. Then you have your shade selector. Make sure you're on the appropriate one for welding or cutting. And then you select your proper shade. So we're going to show you sometimes this lens is actually pretty clear, but sometimes we need to replace them because you can't quite see through it. There's been enough UV damage on the lens that it's no longer very clear. On this helmet, in order to change it, you move these back out that way, these little sliders here, and you unplug the little grinder pin that goes to the grinding button pin, okay? Then we take this and we slide it up and we pull it out. So there's our ADF, our auto darkening filter cartridge. We're going to set this down nice and gently to the side here. And then we're left with a rubber gasket around a clear lens. All right, you're going to peel this rubber gasket off, and then you'll take this lens and you'll discard it. But you need this rubber gasket. Do not throw that away, okay? That keeps all the smoke and filters, light around the edges out so you don't get blinded inside your helmet. So if this were bad plastic, we would throw that away and we would keep the rubber, all right? Then these filter lenses, these clear lenses have a double-sided film. You're going to need to peel the front and the back off. Once you peel off those little wrappers, you would put the rubber gasket back around your lens, and then you slide it right back in place, just like that, okay? And then you carefully pick up your ADF lens. Make sure you slide that little cord through here, put it down, lock these two back in place, take your pin for your grind button, click it back into place, and then you would be ready to go and weld. All right, if you feel like your lens is too dark or too messed up and you can't clean it, come see me. I've got plenty of these floating around, and we can replace it real quick.